Hello and welcome to Shop Talk with Jim and Ken, episode 12. I'm Jim.
And I'm Ken.
Yeah, hello everybody. Got another interesting topic to talk about, and that is the RSL voltage port on our WTM radios. I'm going to show you how to use this, how to activate that feature, and then how to look at that also in the GUI of the radio. So Ken, why don't you walk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I spend an inordinate amount of time with customers the very first time they're trying to align their WTM, learning how to best use the different tools that are available in the UTM, in the WTM. So what I want to show you first is we're going to start off with a page out of our documentation. Let me pull that up real quick. This is in the user guide of the WTM, and it's figure 6. And the first thing I want to show you, we'll bounce back to this in a second, is that on the back of the radio, there's this big circular connector that you take the cover off, and you'll see this, depending on how you have the radio oriented, either upside down or this direction. If it's hanging on the back of this is the way you see it. And if you look closely, you'll see this L1, L2, and all this. But what's important here for this discussion is there's 2 ports, one on the left and one on the right, that will capture your voltage probes for a voltmeter. You can stick those voltmeter probes straight in that left and right port, and that gives you an RSL voltage coming out of the radio. But there's a little trick to it. There's a little blue button, and it's right up here. You have to press that blue button to activate this RSL voltage to be active. And button pressing goes through different modes of operation depending on the radio model you're using. We'll cover that in just a little bit. I wanted to get you just familiar with what this connector looks like. With that, we're going to bounce back over to Jim, and he's going to show you what it looks like live. So we've got a radio here in the lab, and we'll give you a close-up look at what that connector looks like. So take it away, Jim.
Oh, okay, Ken, thanks. So here's that port on a live radio. You'll notice that there's some LEDs that are lit up in here. As you can see, Ken pointed out, there's our 2 test probe ports. You can see there's a red one and a black one, so the red is your positive, black is negative. And then depending on how your radio is oriented, here in the lab, we've got the radios with the cable ports facing up so that we can plug into them and have them stand up on their end. So in this case, the little blue button is below the USB port. So on the very bottom here is where this little blue button is. I'm going to go ahead and use my test probe port voltmeter probe, and I'm going to push that button, and you'll notice the lights are going to change inside here as I do that. So I'll give it a click. And you notice that this little red LED lit up. So that's our first position for checking RSL voltage. If I press it again, second time, the light has gone back off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate this here so we can get a voltage reading. Now it's turned on green. I'm going to go ahead and insert my probes, my voltmeter probes, right into both the positive and negative. And those will capture and hold them in here. You'll notice on the voltmeter, we got a 0.34 volts there, negative 43. So what I'll do is I'm going to go back over to my computer screen. We should be able to see the same thing. This is equivalent to negative 43 dBm signal strength.
Or 34
so
in this case.
Sorry.
That's all right. Easy.
Yeah, it's 34.
Yeah, while Jim's
So
repositioning, let me mention something real quick. So something to really be careful of, I think everybody realizes this, but when we're looking at dBMs of received signal levels, we're always talking negative numbers. The radios are usually receiving at some level between, say, like neg 25 and maybe neg 75 or something like that. Your target voltages are usually in the neg 20s or neg 30s, sometimes neg 40s, something like that. When you're looking on this voltmeter, a bigger number isn't necessarily better. Really, you're just looking at the value of those numbers after the decimal point. So a 0.34 signal is a stronger signal than a 0.35 signal, right? Neg 34 is higher than neg 35. But, so a 30s number is better than a 40s number, and a 40s number is better than a 50s number. So, you're not trying to peak the voltage. You're trying to peak that number to the target value. And the lower that value is, like 30 is a better number than 40. The stronger that incoming signal level is. So that's a super important thing. So not so important to pay attention to whether it's minus voltage or positive voltage. You're just looking at those first 2 digits after the decimal point.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to come over here to the radio interface, and we can see that same thing. So as we were looking, I was on RFM2. It was, if you remember, it was a negative 3.4 volts. So here in the GUI interface, you can see it's a neg 34. If I press this little blue button with a circle, that puts it into real time. So now that's going to track exactly like the voltmeter. So if I were to slightly fade this path, you'll notice that the signal is changing. It's instantaneous update, just like the voltmeter is. So again, the closer to 0, the stronger the signal. There's a point you don't want it too strong. That's around -20. If our radios get a signal stronger than -20, then we start getting distortion in the receiver, so it actually performs more poorly. So in the 30s and 40 range, again, you're going to want to do your link budget calculation, but that's the value you're looking at, and that's how it also corresponds to the voltage on the voltmeter. So let's take a look real quick. We'll toggle back over to the voltmeter, and you'll be able to see that. See, it says 0.34 volts, and then if we come back over here to the computer screen, those things are tracking pretty darn close to each other. So within a dB or so, the voltmeter and the GUI are in sync with each other.
Yeah, so that GUI feature is super nice. Some people might prefer, aligning with the GUI, or they're using their smartphone with the Wi-Fi or something to look at those values. I'm kind of an old school guy, kind of like the voltmeter hanging off the back of the radio. It's easy to look at, easy to look at it in the sun. I'm not fumbling with my phone, that kind of thing. Let's bounce back real quick. I'm going to show you again the screen that I was showing you before.
Okay.
And I want to walk you through that. So where I showed you this picture, that's the port that Jim was using. And there's the button, and there's your 2 probe ports, and there's these different LEDs that light up. One of the secrets you're going to be looking for is that when you press this button, there is a stage at which the LED turns off. That is basically what we'd call stage 1 here, where there's nothing coming out of the voltmeter, and you'll see 0 volts coming out of the voltmeter. You know that you're kind of like at that home base location. As you press the button on the radio, it's going to go through these different stages, and depending on the model of the radio you're using, those different stages do different functions. So it's really important to refer back to this page. If you're using, for example, a 4100, it only has 1 transceiver, so you press it once, you get the RSSI of the radio. It's as simple as that. You press it again, it turns off. So it just toggles between off and RSL, RSL and off, right? But for a 4200 radio, which is dual core radio, the way we do it is if you press it once, you're looking at the RSL of the first carrier, RFM number 1, RF module number 1. If you press it again, then you get the RSSI of the second module, only by itself. So like if this is an XPIC radio, maybe the first one is vertical, the second one is horizontal, that depends on frequency band. But you're looking at one channel, you're looking at the other channel. And then if you press it a third time, it gives you the cross-pole discrimination value, which is yet another thing, which is we use to kind of like rotate the radio to idealize the cross-pole discrimination between the 2 values. So you can use your voltmeter for all 3 of those things. You'll have to press it 4 times to get back to home base. That's the important part. So if you get confused as to which one you're looking at, it's easy. Just keep pressing the button until the LEDs turn off. And then you press it 1 more time, you're back at what we call here stage 2. And now you kind of know where you're at. So all these different models have different functions as to how many times you have to press them and what it is you're seeing on that radio as you press that button. The 4800 multiband, for example, is off, and then you see the RSL of the first carrier, the microwave carrier. Press it again, you get the RSL of the millimeter wave carrier. Press it 1 more time, it turns off. Another really important thing is that this RSL port actually has a timer. We use this to conserve voltage. This actually puts out a little bit of power, so the radio is consuming a little bit of wattage when it's outputting to this voltmeter. It times out after a period of time. I think that timeout's about 2 hours or so. So if you're spending a long time aligning your dish and you notice that the numbers aren't there anymore, you need to press the button again to turn it on. If you pay close attention to the LEDs, you'll realize it's like, oh, the RSL turned itself off. I need to turn it back on. So be a little bit careful of that. I've run into that a couple times in the field. And it can mess with you.
Yeah, I have as well. I had a timeout, didn't realize it timed out. And boy, what happened to our voltage? We spent a little bit of time searching to press that button to turn it back on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, well, terrific. Thanks for sharing that information. Another super useful tip on getting these radios installed and up and running. So that's it for this edition of Shop Talk. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.